Hello, welcome. Finally, we're here, and I'm very happy to have with me Göran from FamilyTreeDNA. Hello, Göran. Welcome.
Hi.
And this is our third attempt, actually, because we have been trying to make this first video on analysis that you are doing at the FamilyTreeDNA, and you have some special tools under development that you're going to show us here now. Isn't that right?
That's right.
Yeah. And I have been asking people here and subscribers and followers if you would send us your kit numbers so we can check them out and see what kind of links we have to the different ancient DNA. That's what we're going to do now in this video. And I've been much eager to do this because, well, there are several reasons. First off, I'm starting an affiliation with you, Göran. Not with you personally, of course, but with FamilyTreeDNA, which is, I guess, good for my channel. But I do work with DNA and different DNA projects. And many people I've worked with have said that sooner or later, these DNA labs that I've been working with need to work with people like you, Göran, because you are the head of the R&D, Research and Development Department at FamilyTreeDNA, right?
Yes.
Yes, and you're Swedish, but you're living in Texas, isn't that right?
That's right.
Yeah. So, but I've come to understanding there's a lot of Vikings in Texas for some reason.
Yeah.
And also, for all of you watching, we have a well, let's call it a surprise with the DNA of Thor Heyerdahl. If you saw that episode on this Norwegian explorer, the video I made with the daughter of Thor Heyerdahl, well, we took the DNA of the son of Thor Heyerdahl. Thor Junior is his name. So we'll put him on the list also. And Göran, I understand you put my name on the list also, right?
Yes.
All right. Yeah. So, and I'd like to express my big thanks to all of you who have written me so much after we asked for people to contribute for this video. There's been so many emails here, and it's been crazy. And I haven't had the chance to answer everyone, unfortunately, but I would like to tell all of you watching now that we plan to do several more videos of this because we have found some very interesting DNA to analyze and compare with ancient DNA. So that's basically what we're going to do now. And before we start, Göran, I'd just like to ask you, because, I mean, we've been talking about doing a live stream and a lot of questions are going to come. I'm sure of that. I just wanted to ask you, we are all of us who have some kind of genetic connection to Scandinavia. We have pretty much Viking in us, wouldn't you say?
You could say, but you can also say that you define your Vikingness by other means as well, not just the DNA, of course. But
of course, yes. But if we walk through how many, I saw you had. You don't need to take that up now because we're going to start right away. But I saw if we go 40 generations back and we go to parents, 4 grandparents, and then 8, 16, 32, 64, and backwards. And if we go 40 generations back, is that what, 100 billion people? Is that right?
If you do the math, you would have a trillion ancestors back to roughly the Viking age, 40 generations ago.
A trillion, yes, and that's a lot of Viking ancestors. So obviously there's been a lot of mixing, and I just want to point that out, that it's not necessarily a chase to see which ancient DNA sample you belong to or anything like that. There's obviously been a lot of mixing throughout the centuries, and also these big catastrophes like the Black Plague have sort of like mixed up things a little bit, and the Justinian plague before the Viking age, along with the climate change. So yeah, there's been a lot of mixing, and what we're doing now is we're taking the published papers on ancient DNA, just like the big Viking paper last year, and we're linking that to living persons, and that's what we're going to do now. And there's so much interesting coming out every month now. Even it's so cool to do this because, Göran, to my understanding, you add these ancient DNA samples. They are publicly available, of course, and you keep doing that, right, every month or so.
Yeah. As soon as we see these ancient DNA papers released, we add them to our database and start comparing them to our customer database, where we have around 60,000 big Y results, so high coverage Y chromosome results now. And
yeah, so
compare them.
That's the thing. 60,000 big Y results, and also today the sale started. You have normally a sale several times a year, but now because I have an affiliation now, so you can press the link below if you'd like to support this channel and maybe be able to have your DNA analyzed and compared with ancient DNA, like we do here now. And if you press the link now, you should get a pretty good discount actually for Father's Day, isn't that right?
Father's Day. So that's why there's a discount on the Y chromosome test, which is the test for the Y chromosome that you inherit from your father and his father and so on.
Yeah, and we're talking now Friday, June 11th, 2021, and Father's Day is coming up in the US, and that's why there's this sale. So it's a good way. I mean, we tried to do this video 2 weeks ago. It wasn't so good because we're working it out, and it's getting much better now, I think, with how we present these results. And we tried to do this last week, but that's on me because I was exploring caves up north in Norway, looking for ancient remains, 10,000 years old and more. And I just want, before we start, Göran, to let all of you who, I did make a series of videos of that, exploring these ancient caves where people have lived in this. It's like that video where blonde hair and blue eyes come from that I made a year ago. It's from the same island, and there are 20 caves there that you can explore, and that's what we did last week. But the internet connection wasn't good enough, so we had to postpone another time. So that's why we're here now. Maybe we can start with the first one, because we got a list of 10 people, right? These are subscribers to the Viking Stories channel, and then we got 2 more people. It's me and Thor Heyerdahl's paternal DNA. It's big Y, right? With Thor Heyerdahl.
Yes. The big Y test. So we'll be focused on the big Y test. And you sent me, I think, the first 20 or so of your subscribers that sent their kit number to us, and 10 of them were suitable for this type of analysis. So they had a big Y test. Some of them had a family finder or a transfer, or they were females. So that won't work for this type of analysis, because right now we're looking at the Y chromosomes. So if you're a female, a woman, and you want to do this type of test, you have to test your brother or your father or an uncle or something like that.
Yeah, or maybe a cousin, first cousin, if you have that kind of family connections. Yeah. So
and let's jump into it.
Yeah, let's do that. And I think Jan is the first one, isn't that right? Jan, you live in Sweden in Umeå, but your family is from Örebro and Värmland, and you have the same main haplogroup as I do. So I'm quite eager to get on with Jan here. Hello, Jan.
So if you look at Jan on this this tree, call it the tree of mankind. So if you take everyone's Y chromosomes inherited from their fathers and so on, and we compare them, we can then build a genetic family tree that goes far back any genealogies that you can do. So if we look at Jan here on this branch, Jan is this Swedish flag down here.
That's
Jan. Up to this reconstructed paternal ancestor called IY33779. It's the code name for this paternal ancestor, lived more than 1,000 years ago. And he shares that with one man from Estonia.
And you can see, so all of these blue ones, they are the reconstructed ones. And everything else are either living persons today at the bottom, or is that a shovel? Is it like archaeological?
Exactly.
Yeah.
If we look at this one, this is CL63, which is the closest ancient DNA sample for Jan. So he shares a common ancestor that lived around 200 BCE. You can see there are some error bars here in the estimation. So between 600 BCE and 200 and year 200. That's where the common ancestor with Jan and this sample. And CL63 is a Longobard sample from a big Longobard study in Hungary and in Italy. Yeah. And this one is from the Italian cemetery. And prepared some more information here.
Yeah. So this is good. Jan, we only found one person, ancient DNA, from you, but it's a person who, well, he was buried in a Longobard cemetery in Italy. And this study, the paper was published by Patrick Geary and other scientists, but it's a pretty amazing study. A lot of people have gotten their eyes open from it, because it was a sort of like, a lot of people thought it was very well made because of its cross-disciplinary approach. And I think they maybe had too few male samples from Italy, but they did have, you said Hungary was a cemetery there also, right, Göran?
Yeah, that's the other one.
Yeah, that's the other one. And this is the 5th century this person lived. Which is, I think, really cool. Still today in southern Italy, they call the Lombards, they call them still Longobard, and that means long beards, right? And originally they stemmed from according to their own sources, which is pretty close to the 6th century. I believe it's 7th or 8th century. They wrote down their own origin stories, and it said Scandia across the sea. So Scandinavia across the sea, meaning Sweden and or Norway. And so there's no coincidence, I guess, that Jan, you have relatives in Italy. And I'd like to add, Göran, as I point out in my video on Vikings and the Sicilian Mafia, the Longobards, they were able to maintain this kind of common culture and very strong connection between themselves, not only in southern Italy, but they ended up in north, where it's still called Lombardy or Lombardia. But this has much to do with the Lombard League, which is much later than the 6th century that you see here. But it's a pretty amazing story. And what more can we say with Jan? If you could go back to the other one, is that possible, Göran? This one, yeah. So what we see here is that 2,200 years ago, there's the most recent common ancestor of all of these persons at the bottom, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And there you can, and you call this the tree of life, was it? How?
We call the tree that we construct, we call the tree of mankind.
Yes.
But this specific view is new prototype I'm working on, and we call it the time tree.
Time tree. Yes, yes. And I really like this. And as you can see, Jan, you have a relative in Estonia, which lived, is that about 1,000 years ago, 1,100 years ago?
Yep.
Yes, and we're getting to Estonia pretty soon in the next people, so we can move on if that's okay by you, Göran.
Yeah, so that's the first haplogroup I1, which I think is the most common one in the Viking study, most common haplogroup. And we go moving on to Mark, it's also in I1. So Mark is here, this
so yeah,
American flag.
Let me drop in there, because Mark, hello Mark, you live in North Carolina, and you also have I1, the same as me. So we're like a family bond there in a sense. And we have the most recent and common ancestor for Mark. We got to go ways back then, isn't it? Like 3,000 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's when the transition period with the late Bronze Age collapse, which is between then the Bronze Age and the early Iron Age. So it's a pretty cool time period, and lots of things happened there, of course. So what are we looking at here? Is that 2 ancient samples for Mark?
Yes, 2 Vikings from the study that you were a co-author on.
Yeah.
Sturla. So we have, let's bring up some more information about them. So we have the first one. So let's say a few words.
Yes, this is from Denmark, as you can see here. This is on the web page dnaexplained.com, where they have. Well, it's pretty easy. If you want to find out more, you can search for the sample name on the top there, VK367, and you can look up the different papers. But I have posted some down below here, Göran, and all the others watching, so you can click for yourselves if you want. And there's not a whole lot to say about this. I mean, it's a 10th century Viking in Denmark. That's basically it, right, for this one.
All right.
But
And
the other one is interesting, right? Here we are. So here we are in Estonia. This is the Salme burial site, and there are 2 ship burials. And what's intriguing here is this is before the sort of official start of the Viking Age, much before, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And they talk about around 750. There was a big battle, obviously, in Estonia. And we don't know if the Vikings who went to Estonia lost or if they won. But in either case, they were able to bury their dead. That we know. And this is a really cool way to, like I talk about in the video, when did the Viking Age start? Because it didn't really start with Lindisfarne in England, of course, and then there are so many different aspects to view this. Did you have some more information on this Salme burial?
I don't know. Do we? Oh,
Yeah, there we go. Here we go. And these are links I put down below, so it's pretty easy to read for yourselves also about this the 2 ship burials here. And I do believe there are some artifacts here that we can have a look at the same time. Isn't that right, Göran? Here, the human remains. Oh yeah. By the way, skeleton remains from at least 42 individuals were discovered in 2 ships, and males. And the cool thing about this is that they all seem to have come from the same place in Sweden. And this, in the paper last year, this was sort of like a confirmation on what a lot of archaeologists and historians have been talking about, who boarded these Viking ships and left out. Did they come from all around, or was it like here in Norway, where I live in the fjords, that you had 1 or 2 ships and people from the same fjord who are pretty much all related in clan would travel out? And that's what we find here, because they are very closely related, as it says here. 4 of the men are brothers, it says on the bottom here, and they were related to a 5th man, perhaps an uncle of the dead people in this burial graves. Yeah, I believe there's another photo here of a sword. Isn't that right, Göran? There we go. There you see one of the swords from one of your one of your cousins, distant cousins. Can I say that, Göran?
Yeah.
Yeah. And they, oh, by the way, and they also ritually sacrifice dogs as well as hawks used for falconry in this burial. So that's it's quite intriguing, very much quite intriguing, this Salme burial. And there are more people in our list that have connections here, if I remember correctly. I hope so,
Right. So let's move on to the next one.
Yeah, Charles.
Which should be Charles, yes.
Yeah, and Charles, you live in Texas, and you're also I1. That's the main haplogroup, and here, Charles, hello. We have to all go even further back in time for the most common ancestor, right?
Yeah, we have to go back from Charles down here with his very recent paternal cousin. If we go back to FGC 9506, just over 3,000 years ago, we find connections. So you see, there's the same connections to CL63, the same as John.
That's the one in Denmark.
Yes. No, that's the Longobard.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, the Longobard.
That's
first
the Longobard.
One.
But John is a closer relative to the Longobard. But if we go further back in time, Charles is also a distant cousin to the Longobard, plus 2 more ones. So we have 1 Viking, VK157, and also R110, which is a Roman sample. So let's see what we have of them.
So that's the first one, VK157. It's found in Poland, and Let's see here now. So that's a Viking sample from Poland. And can we look at the other one? And this is VK47. Let's see. That's also the one, the same from Charles, right?
Yeah, I think, no, this is the next one. Sorry.
Yeah,
So
I have it here. Next one, yes. So, but what we do have is the sample from Rome, and I'd like to say something about that because that's about 500 Common Era. Yeah, we can see it there. Plus minus a few years, as we see there also. But it's really intriguing, Charles, that you have on the one side, on the left, right side here, you see the Longobard sample, but then there's another straight male line coming down in the migration era at the time of the end or the fall of the Roman Empire, when lots of Germanic tribes took over basically down in Italy. And there were not only Visigothic peoples and then Longobards coming along, there were many other like Rugi and Heruli who took over. Odoacer, he is the first king of Italy, registered in 476. So this is that really, really special time period in Italian history, and it's just before the Ragnarok. Like if you saw that video that I made about Ragnarok, it really did happen, and it was the Fimbulwinter of the year 536, and also you had the plague, huge plague, devastating. So it's really, really special to have all these different lines going down to Italy, Charles. And then in addition, you have that Viking who didn't go that far down and ended up in Poland, where he was buried. Yeah, so those are the three samples that we're looking at here. Could I ask you, Göran, this Longobard line here you see on the right, would that indicate in any case that the what became the Longobard tribe would sort of like isolate themselves from the other ones genetically pretty early, like early in the early Iron Age from this, or is that?
Well, what we can see is that, yeah, their paternal line separated around 3,000 years ago. That's when they diverged.
And yeah, because that's really intriguing to think of. The two lines to the right here were obviously both Germanic tribes, but they have separated fairly early, it seems. It doesn't mean that they didn't live together in a clan, but at some point they have ended up taking different paths along with many other people.
Yes, exactly.
Mm. And could you say something about why there's so many mutations on that Longobard line and so few on that Viking found in Poland and present day Charles?
Sorry, I have to clarify. How many mutations? You mean
yes.
all these
blue
lines?
Yes.
So this depends on how many people they have tested from this line. So the more people that test with a big Y test, the more refined this part of the tree can be. So we can split up this line and find that brothers separated here and here and here and here. While on this line, there's this long bottleneck where we only have one known surviving line that went all this way with no known brothers or offsprings in between. Yeah. So it can be the result of tester buyout, so more customers from certain countries, but it can also be that this line is just more rare today.
Yeah. But it's virtually impossible to say at this point, I imagine. Yeah. Okay, that's good to clarify. And then after Charles, I do believe we have Allan from West Sussex and West Sussex in England. But Allan, you are from South Wales, and this is really, really cool because you don't have I1 like the three previous ones, but and you don't have the Indo-European paternal DNA either. You have the G, the haplogroup G. Isn't that right?
Yeah, that's the only one from this selection with haplogroup G, which is more associated with the South Europe and the early farmers arriving into Europe.
And we do have some samples around in Europe here, which is no surprise since the Neolithic legacy, I guess, of this haplogroup. We're farmers, of course, but it seems like a lot of them disappeared in different regions, like on Iberia and on the British Isles and other places in Europe. So it's quite cool to see you, Allan, to have that, and you're from Wales in addition, right? Where there's a really large percentage of the Indo-European influx, which ended up becoming Celtic, right? So what's the first one we have here that we can look at? There are a lot of people on the right here of the ancient DNA.
Yeah, but we have to go back really far to find some ancient matches. We have to go back 4,500 years. And if you go back that far in time, then another descendant that I'm not showing here is actually the Bure family from Sweden, which was studied by Johannes Bure. So that's a cool side story.
Yeah, absolutely. Very interesting, actually. Yeah. So here we have 4 different lines, and these are I know there's one from Rome here, even, right?
There's 3 from Rome. We have R55, R108, and R1224.
Yeah. And the one from Rome is about 1500 years old. That's the top one, I believe. Yeah. And then you have these other ones are later, 1300 and 1500 Common Era. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's pretty new. And well, maybe it's not surprising at all to find ancient DNA with this haplogroup in Rome at that time. And here we have the last sample from Gotland, and it's really cool to find Viking DNA in haplogroup G on Gotland in the well, core period of the Viking Age here, as you can see. I think that, Göran, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. And let's see, that's all we have from you, it seems, Allan. Isn't that right?
Yeah, so let's move on to Robert, who's next on my list.
Yeah, Robert. Hello, Robert. You live in Edmonton in Canada, and this is one of those 2 samples we have of the 12 who are not big Y. Isn't that right? But we still found something interesting.
Yeah, this is based on a SNP pack test result, so it's not as detailed as Big Y, but for this purpose, we see that the closest ancient relative is so far back, so a Big Y wouldn't really be able to tell anything other than what we're seeing now when it comes to ancient DNA. But of course, there might be more ancient DNA samples coming up in future studies belonging down here. So
yeah.
But if we start down here, track back up, we also have to go back 4,500 years, this one. And this is actually a really cool part of R1B. It's a subclade of C2103, which is very much associated with the Yamnaya culture.
Because this main haplogroup is R1B, isn't that right?
Yes.
Yeah. And of course, we should be able to find some Yamnaya connected to the R1B, but there's also something from Serbia here, isn't it?
Yeah. So if we would go back further back in time, we would find all these Yamnaya ancient samples in Russia and Ukraine. But the closest ones are these ones, MOK 24 and 27. Let's see if I have some more information about them.
There we are. This is the paper, right? And there's a link again down below, so you can read this for yourself. And this paper is well, it's interesting in several manners, but they have analyzed, as you can see here, 24 ancient genomes. They measured let's see, it says here, genetic kinship between individuals. And here again, we see the absence of biological daughters. And this is, of course, because this is the Bronze Age. And as you might know, the word for gift and the word to get married still in Scandinavia is the same word. And that has to do with the Bronze Age and the huge, extensive trading networks that they were needed to have in order to make bronze, basically. And they had the clan cultures all over Europe, and they married off their offspring, their daughters, to secure. There's one paper even from Germany where they find daughters in high status families up to 350 kilometers away. So that says something about the connections that they secured in this way. So this is a pretty interesting paper to read in that manner. Yeah, that's basically what I have to say about it.
Yeah, and I have to say again, it's a really cool part of R1B. About half of our, because we have so many European descendant customers, about half of all our big Y customers belong to R1B, and most will belong to P312 or U106. But this is another much rarer group from the Yamnaya culture. That's really cool.
Yeah, so that means, Robert, that you are somewhat special, I guess, like we all are in a sense. Yeah. Are we moving on to Morten now, who lives in Norway?
Yeah, we're moving back to haplogroup I1 and Morten, Norway.
Yeah.
You see the Norwegian flag down here.
Yeah.
And if we go back 3,000 years to his paternal line ancestor that lived 3,000 years ago, we find these connections to two Vikings. Let's see if we have, plus we also have a non-Viking, HGH 1558.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that one, Göran, but maybe we should take the two Vikings first. This is the one of those on Gotland. And then Allan. Also, I believe this is from the Viking paper last year. Isn't that right?
Yes, that's right.
But I'd like to move on to the third one, because if you see here, and again, there's a link down below, especially for you, Morten. And I do believe you mentioned this to me, even, Morten. So maybe you know about it. But what's really intriguing about this? First of all, it's a paper on paratyphoid fever. So it's bacteria. They've taken the name from bacteria, and they found traces of that. So it's working on pathogens along with working on humans. And as you can see down to the right here, they find a close similarity to a strain from Norway around 1200. And the outbreak that this is from is 1367, and it's in Lübeck. And most of you might know Lübeck from this time period to be a very, very important trading city in the Hanseatic League. And as all Norwegians know, the Hanseatic League came to Bergen and controlled much of the trade. The old ancient Norwegian nobility tried to resist. They didn't stand a chance against these advancing Germans, not with weapon in hand, but with the sale of dried fish, especially from Norway. And they came around the year 1280 to Bergen. And the Lübeck was an important city, of course. So I find it fascinating, really, to see that they have close similarity to a strain from Norway around 1200. So it could be argued even that some of these Germans would pick up in Bergen this salmonella bacteria and take it back to Lübeck with them. And there was a big outbreak. So that was maybe the revenge of the Norwegians. I don't know. It's a fun way to think of it. Morten, if you would agree, I would be happy.
I don't know, but it's a really cool double connection, right? Both the Y chromosome plus the bacteria.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So if you move on, we have John, who lives in Tampa in Florida, but he's got family on his paternal side in Derbyshire. If I said that, Derbyshire, well, in England in any case. And what can we say about John here? This is not a big Y sample, right?
This is back in R1B again, and this is P312, which is one of the more common branches of P312 among our customers. Mm-hmm. And John does not have a big Y. I think he's got a step back result as well, so he can be placed up here. Mm-hmm. And with the big Y upgrade, he could find out if he is closer related to any of these lines down here. So currently, he's up here around 4,000 years ago on his paternal line.
Yeah, so John, we already have some links for you going back. And if you want to consider pushing the link down below for this affiliation program, you can get a discount for the Big Y, and then you can find out more about this. And is that possible then, Göran, to find out more connections, more samples, ancient DNA samples also when he does the Big Y?
Well, he knows his rough placement, so he knows that his current 3 closest relatives are those 3 ones, but he can find that he's closer related to any one of those 3.
Yeah.
And then, of course, as more are added, he could find closer connections to them as well.
Yeah, right. So here we have Galgedil. This is the Denmark, the Danish sample, which is not very accurate in the time period here. It's all around the Viking Age. And then the other one is from Ribe, which is a very important trading city in Denmark. And we know where people traded. They mixed more also genetically, in a sense. We can see that in the genes. And then the last one, isn't that from Langeland? Yeah, 10th century CE. So there are 3 Danish samples there, John. And so that's pretty cool that you have a straight paternal line going back to England, but your ancient samples are all from Denmark. So there you go. That's the Dane law for you. And then we're off to Paul. Isn't that right? Paul, who lives in Australia. Hello, Paul. It's you'll probably see this on Saturday, since you live in Queensland. And you, Paul, have something really, really interesting, because your main haplogroup is not I1 or R, it's I2. Isn't that right?
Yeah, that's really cool haplogroup that was much more widespread in all over Europe before I1 even existed.
And you have a pretty long line going up there now, I see.
Yeah, if you look at the time scale, I had to scale it back a lot to find a connection.
So let's start going back in time here now, Göran.
So if we go back to around 4,000 years ago, we have the first connection, which is this sample from a study in Germany. Let's look at that one.
Yeah, in Unetise, if that's how you pronounce it, in Esperstedt. And there's a small graveyard of 10 burials, early Bronze Age culture, and it says something about the burial position, and that's it really, what it says here. But maybe we can move even further back in time. How far do we have to go to find the next? There we are, the Cheddar Man.
Look
and
at this one.
We can see him. Yeah.
We have to go back 10,000 years on the same paternal line, and we find this really cool connection.
And the Cheddar Man has been written quite a lot about on that it's possible to read about on the internet. And this is, I mean, Paul, this is your ancestor, man, and it's not a straight paternal ancestor. Is it a cousin, sort of? Is that the right way to say it?
Yeah, it's very unlikely that these specific samples that we happen to sequence would be the direct paternal ancestor. It's more likely to be a paternal cousin.
And I'm not going to say too much about the Cheddar Man, and most people have heard about the Cheddar Man, and it's possible to read a lot about him. And Paul, if you didn't know this, maybe you should take some time off and read about your family member here, because that's a really, really cool connection. Who lived a long time ago.
Yeah. And then from haplogroup I2, we have another new haplogroup N for Marcus.
Yeah, Marcus, you live in Norrland in Sweden, so it's great to have you on this channel and to talk about your DNA that you have submitted. The most recent common ancestor, what is it, 3,800 years ago?
Yeah.
And
so we have to go a long way back. So in your Viking study, Sturla, I took a quick look, and it seems like there was around 5, 6, 7% of the Vikings were actually haplogroup N. So not so common, but still fairly common.
Yeah.
Among those sampled sequences.
Yeah, and no, they didn't get a lot of samples from Sweden. in that Viking study. And they didn't get a lot of samples from Norway either. So maybe that percentage could have been higher, but that's up for future research, I guess. And what we see here, there are quite a lot of samples here, isn't that right? Ancient samples.
Yes, we don't find any close Vikings, but we do find some other ones. I'll have some more information about.
Bitaya. And these are burial mounds. Let's see, really far back in time, isn't it? Let's see, Bitaya. Well, 2,200 years. Is that right? Is that what it says here? Yeah, about 2,200 years before present. 5 mounds in close to the Urals there, and a clan cemetery, it says here. So here, Marcus, it's possible for you to travel to Mount Bitaya. It's a mountain, and you can find your clan cemetery there, maybe, if that's a way to put it a little bit out there. And the N haplogroup is also really cool, because there is this big, as many of you know, there's this big project on the Rurik, the Rus Vikings. They had I made a video about the Rus Vikings, but this clan, one family who ruled what became Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus for more than 700 years, until the year 1600. And their descendants claim to belong to this haplogroup N. So that's why it's quite cool also to find, for you, Marcus, to find the descendants in present-day Russia. And there was one more sample here also, wasn't it? Yeah, this one? Or is this from the same one?
No, this is the, I don't know how to pronounce this, Uyelgi cemetery, also in Russia.
And this is the one that's only 1,000 years ago?
Yes.
Yeah,
so
right.
Here.
There's Uyelgi Cemetery. There we are. And yeah, and this was also included in the Viking paper for you, Marcus. So you have a lot of relatives going east, far east, you know, just like Ingvar the Far Traveler. And,
right.
should we move on? Because before we get on to my sample that you have, Göran, and also to Thor Heyerdahl, we have a person here from Anglesey in Wales, and we'll just call him H. Isn't that right?
Mr. H.
Yes, and look at all these ancient samples. That's the big surprise. And man, I mean, Anglesey in itself, that's a place where the Vikings who left Ireland, these 4 settlements, the Viking settlements in Ireland, 3 of them, including Dublin, had problems in the year 902, I believe it was. And some of these Vikings would, after a while, settle down in Normandy, but on their way, they tried to settle in Anglesey. And I've always been very intrigued about Anglesey. I'd like to travel there, but it wasn't easy there to deal with the Welsh who were there, and they went on to the Wirral and the Liverpool area, many of these. But look at this, H, your sample. It's R1B, isn't it? And the most recent common ancestor is 3,400 years ago. Isn't that right?
Yep. If you go back to the ancestor, the shared ancestor with the ancient samples, and we have lots of them here. We have Vikings from your study. We have Vikings from the Icelandic study. We have Longobards from Hungary, and also late Vikings from Sigtuna. Let's see if we have some more information about them.
Yes, because H, you have 2 samples, 2 cousins who were in 2 different massacres. One in Oxford, and then it's this St. Brice Days massacre, where all Danes were commanded by Ethelred to be killed, which was a devastating decision, because this, they lost big on that, and that paved the way for King Knut of Denmark to take control of England in the early thousands. So this is the one, and then you have the next one there. Let's see. Oh, is this also from? Is it even from Norway? Yes, you have one sample from Norrland, and this is the Iron Age from the north of Norway. And I think this is it's not as cool, I guess, since it's mass burial grave, and so many people were killed and beheaded in these two executions, mass executions. But in Norrland, in the Iron Age, this is the Roman period. There was a lot of trade. I've talked a lot about that in different videos, and that you have samples in your family tree going backwards, cousins like this, ancient cousins from Norrland in the north of Norway. That's where I was a week ago, and looked for people like this. So that's really, really cool. I would say, H. Yeah. And here,
nice.
yeah, and this is the other mass burial pits. I said the first one was in Oxford, and where the St. Brice's Day massacre was. And this is the Ridgeway Hill Viking burial pit in Dorset. And here you can see 54 skeletons. And these had one of these mass burials, they showed some resistance, and the other ones were just purely beheaded. And I guess this one is the one where they were beheaded. Or was that the Oxford one? I'm actually not sure at the moment here, but it seems like these guys were captured, and they had tried to. Well, they were obviously unarmed, and when they were all killed. And you got another one here, yeah, Balladur, and this is I've been here actually. I've been standing right there with those stone there. This is the boat burial on the Isle of Man. And this person, I've been told by the main author of the Viking paper last year, was a traveler. So he was not local, and he's got family going back to Norway. That's why I learned from the main author of the paper here. So there's also a Norwegian connection there even. So I mean, there's a lot, and there's Sigtuna you mentioned, and Skara also in Sweden. Yeah, there we go. So I mean, there's so much Viking connections here. It's just it's almost crazy. Orkney also, and on this in these burials in Orkney, we also see that some have a lot of local Celtic DNA in them, so they're not purely Vikings from Scandinavia. But that just confirms what we know about the sources of how they would mix the Vikings, especially from Western Norway, who came down into Scotland. They would mix so much, they were called Norse Gaels. I made a video on that too. So it's great to have connections even there also. But you can see lines going back to Norway there all the way back, but also to Sweden. And then was that it with H from Anglesey?
I think so. There were a few that we didn't have any data for. That's these SD4,
yes,
the Longobard, and then also URM 160 from Sigtuna.
Yeah. But the Longobard study we talked about earlier, it's the same study from Patrick Geary, isn't that right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, only it's in Hungary and not in Italy. All right, that's cool. And I guess you have something from me also.
Yeah, let's check out your ancient Vikings. So you, Sturla, you are down here, the Norwegian flag down here. And your line is kind of curious because you have these two other, your brother clades that have a lot more testers in a database.
More. Yeah.
But you are kind of alone here. So your line, the third brother, maybe didn't have so many descendants, or maybe your relatives haven't, your paternal cousins haven't tested yet. So you have to wait and see. But all of you from those three brother lines are related to these three Vikings: VK 110, VK 400, and also one from the Icelandic study.
Yeah. So it's Skara in Sweden, which is not the same Skara as H before. It's another sample, and then there are two from Iceland. Isn't that right?
Yep, this from Iceland. This one is also from Iceland, from the other study.
from Svinadalur, Swine Valley. Yeah, pre-Christian. So these are early settlers coming from Norway, maybe after Harald Fine here threw so many nobles out and many traveled to Iceland. We can imagine. I have the most recent common ancestor only about 1400 years ago. With these people, but it's quite intriguing that I'm all the way alone there on the left there. I mean, Göran, I have to tell you, as far back as we can remember, all the men in our family have been sort of a little bit of a loner. I'm a loner type myself, you know. I'm a little bit of a yeah. Well, I guess that's the way it is. So I got to tell my sons this. But yeah, it's fascinating. But maybe if more people, as more people purchase DNA kits with FamilyTreeDNA, maybe I'll be lucky and have more people who are closer related to me. And if not, if nobody has, if this is a pure straight line going for 1400 years, I don't know how we survived, but I guess we're stubborn because we are.
Yeah, and you might also find some more matches, you know, from the upcoming ancient DNA studies.
Yes, and I'm really waiting for this one from Repton in England, where not only Vikings but I mean Viking men, but there are also children and women in that. There was some kind of plague there in the middle of the Viking Age, I think 870, about 865. So there was this great heathen army. And that should come soon, and that could very well be a lot of samples to include for you, Göran.
Wow.
Yeah,
cool.
Let's hope for
right.
that.
So let's move on to
Thor Heyerdahl, right? It's the big one.
Big star.
Yeah. So let's see here now. What can we see on Thor Heyerdahl? He's got a Swedish. Man, he's got a Swedish almost brother, not brother, but yeah.
Going back just over 800 years, his closest connection in our Big Y database is a Swede.
Mm.
And then going back to the ancient samples, they are all in Iceland on these different lines. So that's curious. There are, and if we look at this in the context of all the other testers that belong to the same line that have the same Icelandic ones, you see, we have to scroll a bit here.
Yeah.
These are all the customers that are distantly related to Heyerdahl from the same line as him.
Wow, that's a lot of people who are related to Thor Heyerdahl.
Here's Thor. And here's
all right. Yeah.
Everyone else. And you see these Icelandic Vikings, they're on different lines. So that means that there were multiple migrations to Iceland, not just, you know, one person that went to Iceland and settled there.
Yeah.
Seems like he had some distant explorer cousins as well.
Absolutely, and this is great to know. I'm sure I know the family of Thor Heyerdahl, as you know, and but there's another thing here, Göran, what's really intriguing, because Thor Heyerdahl, he had these theories about the origin of the Norse gods and that the origin myths that you can read about in Norse sagas about people coming from the east, from the far east even, and settling in Scandinavia, that they were, after their deaths, they were raised up to be thought of as gods, and maybe Odin came from the east also and was a historical person at some time. Well, the fun thing is that Thor's main haplogroup is R1B. So in his straight paternal line, and all of those you can see here, if you follow them backwards geographically, you'll end up in Central Asia, right, for this R1B.
Yeah, curious.
So that means he was right to some extent regarding his own paternal family. Only this is much further back in time, of course. I should do a video on that, Göran. I plan to do that. Yeah. But it's then we have to talk about Yamnaya and all these Kurgan graves and everything. Yeah. And there we are. That's it. And how much time did we spend on this? We we're getting close to an hour here now, but that's not too bad.
Good.
So what I think, for all of you who have watched this, I hope you can comment below and let us know what you think about this. If you want to support my channel and are intrigued to find out more about your own DNA, you should consider pressing the links down below, because you'd help out and you'd also be able to perhaps get some answers, especially if you do the big Y. But there's also not only a male link you can press, there's also a female one, isn't that right?
Yes, there's also the empty fold test, which is testing mitochondria, which has got the same properties. So it's inherited from your mother's mother's mothers. So you can find that line as well.
Yeah.
And maybe we can do another special in the future where we track your mitochondrial lines and match them up with ancient DNA.
I'd like to do that very much, very much. So if for all of you who are considering buying a big Y sample or an mtDNA sample for a straight maternal line, because that's a straight maternal line, right? Isn't it? Yeah. So either straight paternally or straight maternally. You can do that right now since there's a sale. So it's a good way to put out this video on this Friday here. And yes, let's do another video soon. I'd love that. So many people have asked me, and the response after my question and the enthusiasm by all of you watching, I'm so grateful, and we'll definitely follow up, and maybe we can find out some really cool ones, like H from Anglesey and others also, and we can do another video soon. And if you'd like that, please send us a comment down below so we can read that and talk more and make more plans in the future. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Well, thanks a lot, and I appreciate this greatly. I'm very much looking forward to working with you on future projects, because I think that's the right way to go, and let's see where it goes from here.
Let's see that.
Yeah. And thanks for watching, everyone, and thanks for subscribing if you want to do that. And let's talk again soon. I'm wishing you all a very good weekend, and the same to you, Gerald.
Have a good weekend all.
Yeah. Take care.